Every house, every king, and every battle has its own truth. But there are stories older than crowns, darker than the night, and more dangerous than any blade. They were never written in books. They were whispered to fire, to the trees, and to the dead gods. And today, we dare to uncover one of them. The wind howled across the black cliffs of Dragonstone, where the sea beat endlessly against jagged rock. The castle above, forged in the fires of old Valyria, stood silent, save for the crackle of torches in its halls. Within those ancient walls, a boy with silver hair and violet eyes wandered alone. His name was Prince Gaemon Targaryen, though few still called him Prince. He was the third son of a lesser Targaryen line, born without a dragon. In those days, when dragons ruled the skies and fire decided kings, such a thing was seen as a curse, or worse, a shame. His brothers had bonded with hatchlings from birth, soaring through the clouds before they could even lift a sword. But when Gaemon's egg turned to ash in the brazier and never stirred, the whispers began. Fireless, they called him. Stone-born, the cold Targaryen. So he lived quietly in the shadow of the great fortress, studying by candlelight, keeping to the lesser halls while others feasted and flew. He read of old Valyria and its dragon lords, of how the blood of fire once conquered the world. But even in those dusty tomes, he found no comfort, only the echo of a glory that seemed forever lost. Then came the night that changed everything. It began with a tremor deep beneath the mountain, a low, rumbling growl that shook the very floors. Gaemon rose from his bed, the stone beneath his feet trembling. Dragonstone was no stranger to such sounds. The volcano that birthed it still slept fitfully beneath the keep. Yet this was different. It felt alive. He followed the sound down, past the servants' corridors and into the old caverns where the air grew thick with heat and the stench of sulfur. His torchlight flickered over carvings older than the Targaryens coming to Westeros, dragons twisted in endless knots, eyes set with black gems that gleamed like obsidian. There, half buried in ash and rubble, he found a sealed door of black stone. Across its surface ran words in Valyrian script so ancient even he could scarcely read them. But one line stood clear. Beneath shadow sleeps the flame that should not wake. He reached out. The stone was warm beneath his palm. Too warm. Then it moved. With a grinding sigh, the seal cracked open, and a breath of searing heat poured from within. Gaemon stumbled back, his torch guttering. A dim red light glowed from beyond the doorway, pulsing like a living heart. Inside was a vault, a hidden chamber lined with scales of dark metal that shimmered with veins of crimson. At its center rested an altar, and upon it lay an object unlike any he had seen, a crystal orb, black as smoke yet alive with swirling fire. When he drew closer, whispers rose in his mind, words he could not understand, yet which stirred his blood like a long-forgotten song. His hand trembled as he reached out, and stopped. He was not alone. From the shadows stepped a woman cloaked in sea-green silk, her hair the pale gold of the Valyrians, her eyes sharp as cut glass. "You should not be here, my prince," she said softly. Gaemon turned, startled. "Who are you?" "Aelys Velaryon," she replied, "daughter of Lord Demian's steward. I've seen you walking these halls. You seek what all Targaryens seek, their fire." He looked back at the orb. "What is this place?" "A secret," she whispered. "One your kin buried after the war began. My grandsire swore he saw Prince Daemon himself seal this chamber before his death. They said he meant to keep something terrible from falling into the wrong hands." Her gaze flicked to the orb. And now you've found it." Before Gaiman could answer, the ground shuddered once more. A gust of heat roared from the vault's heart, and for an instant, the light within the orb flared brighter, like a dragon awakening from a long sleep. Alis grabbed his arm. "We must go, now!" Together they fled the vault, the sound of stone grinding shut behind them. When at last they reached the safety of the upper halls, Gaiman looked back into the dark stairway below. "What was that thing?" he whispered. Alis's face was pale. "A relic of old Valyria, perhaps, or something worse. You felt it, didn't you? The pull in your blood?" He nodded. "Then you know," she said quietly. "The dragons may be dying, but something down there is not dead yet." That night, Gaiman could not sleep. He sat by his window as the wind howled over the cliffs, staring toward the smoldering mountain. The orb's image burned in his mind, the swirling fire, the whispers in his blood. For years, he had dreamed of what it meant to be Targaryen, to bear fire in his veins, to ride the wind upon wings of flame. But now, as he felt the echo of something ancient stirring beneath Dragonstone, he wondered if the gods had denied him his dragon for a reason. And yet, even knowing the danger, he could not stay away. Before dawn, he rose once more, wrapped his cloak tight, and descended again into the depths. The shadows waited for him, and this time, they whispered his name. The next morning broke gray and bitter, the sea wrapped in mist that curled around Dragonstone's towers like smoke from a dying fire. Gaiman Targaryen walked the halls in silence, his thoughts fixed upon the hidden chamber below. The whispering voice that had stirred in his mind the night before had not left him. It lingered like a flame behind his eyes, flickering whenever he closed them. He went about his day as though nothing had changed. At the morning meal, he sat at the lower end of the hall among the household retainers, far from the lords and dragon riders who now quarreled over Rhaenyra's claim and Aegon's crown. The dance of the dragons had not yet ended, but the fire was burning low. Half the dragons lay dead, the rest scattered or wounded. Even the great Vermithor, they said, had taken no rider since his last fell battle. "Have you heard, Prince Gaiman?" A young squire whispered beside him, eager for gossip. "They say the queen's dragons are dying one by one. The eggs do not hatch, the fires burn cold. Perhaps the gods have turned their faces from House Targaryen." Gaiman only nodded, his gaze fixed on the black cup before him. The squire meant no harm, but his words were daggers all the same. When the meal ended, Gaiman slipped away to the rookery tower. There, amid the scent of parchment and ravens, he sought the maester, a lean old man with clouded eyes named Maester Orwyle. "Maester," Gaiman began, his voice low, "in your studies of Valyria, have you ever heard of relics, objects said to hold the fire of dragons themselves?" Orwyle frowned beneath his chain. "Many tales, my prince. The Valyrians were a people of flame and sorcery. Some claimed their greatest magisters could bind fire into glass or draw power from molten rock. But such things are gone, lost with the doom. And if such a relic were found here, on Dragonstone," the old man's hands froze upon his scroll, "then I would counsel caution. Dragonstone is alive, in its way. Beneath its stones are veins of fire that remember things better left forgotten. Whatever sleeps there, let it sleep." Gaiman thanked him and departed, though his heart burned hotter with every word. That night, the moon hung like a shard of silver glass over the castle. Gaiman slipped from his chamber and descended once more into the tunnels beneath the keep, torchlight dancing upon his pale hair. The air grew hotter with every step, until his breath came thick and labored. When he reached the sealed vault again, He found the door already open. Within stood Alis Valerian, the sea-green cloak cast aside, her face lit by the pulsing glow of the black orb. "You came," she said without turning. "You shouldn't be here," Gaiman murmured. "Nor should you, yet here we are," she replied, her tone wry, but her eyes grave. "I could not sleep after last night. The dreams, they were full of fire and wings." Gaiman stepped closer. The orb pulsed again, its light throbbing like a heartbeat. "It calls to us," he said. "To you," she corrected softly. "I only feel its heat, but you hear it, don't you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "It speaks in Valyrian, though not as any man would. It says there is fire yet unclaimed, sleeping beneath shadow." Alis's eyes narrowed. "Then it may be true. What my grandsire told me as a child, that Prince Demon brought back something from the war, a flame not born of any dragon's breath. He meant to use it to command even the wild dragons, but the queen forbade it. They said it twisted those who touched it." "Twisted how?" "Made them think they could master fire itself." A tremor passed through the vault, and a whisper coiled through Gaiman's mind once more. "Blood of the dragon. Awaken me." He staggered back, clutching his head. The torch sputtered. Alis rushed to him, steadying his shoulders. "What is it?" "It knows me," he breathed. "It knows my blood. Then we must leave." But even as she spoke, a new voice rang out from behind them, a voice deep and cold as winter steel. "Leave? When you've found the very heart of House Targaryen's doom." They turned. In the doorway stood Sir Miles Mouton, his crimson cloak darkened with ash, a hand upon his sword. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with hunger. "I followed you, little prince, you and your sea-maid friend. Tell me, what treasure have you found in the Queen's Mountain?" Alis stepped before Gaiman, her hand gripping a dagger at her belt. "It's nothing that concerns you, sir." "Oh, but it does," Miles said with a smile. "A relic that could awaken dragons? That concerns every soul in this war, and I would see it placed in the right hands." He took a step forward. "Give it to me." Gaiman shook his head. "You serve Queen Rhaenyra. Would you use this against her enemies, or against her?" Miles's smile faded. "I serve the realm, and the realm is dying because of your house's madness. If this relic can end it, then it belongs to me." He drew his blade. The orb flared, casting a burst of crimson light across the vault. For an instant, shadows danced upon the walls like writhing dragons. Alis lunged, slashing at Miles, but the knight was swift. His sword caught her dagger mid-swing, sending it clattering to the floor. Gaiman, desperate, turned toward the altar. The orb's light pulsed faster, calling to him. "Blood of the dragon, claim me." He reached out, and fire exploded across the chamber. The blast threw all three to the ground, the air filled with smoke and the roar of unseen flame. From the heart of the vault came a shape, a shadow vast and winged, outlined in red fire. It was not solid, but a spirit of heat and fury, its eyes glowing like molten gold. Miles crawled backward, his sword clattering from his hand. "Seven hells!" Alis shielded her face, shouting, "Gaiman, what have you done?" Gaiman rose slowly, the fire swirling around him. His eyes burned the same molten hue as the creature before him. When he spoke, his voice echoed with another's, deep, ancient, and terrible. "I have awakened what was meant to sleep," he said. The shadow dragon opened its jaws, and the vault shook as if the mountain itself were roaring. Then everything went dark. When Gaiman awoke, he lay upon the cold stones of his chamber. His skin was unburned, yet the air around him still smelled of smoke. Alis sat beside his bed, her face pale and fearful. "The vault collapsed," she said softly. "The night fled. No one else knows what happened, but the heat still seeps from the cracks below. Whatever you called forth, it is not gone." Gaiman stared at his hands. Faint lines of red light traced his veins like living fire, and from somewhere deep below Dragonstone, a distant rumble answered the beat of his heart. The days that followed blurred together like smoke upon the wind. Dragonstone's halls whispered of tremors in the deep, of strange heat rising from the mountain's heart, of servants swearing they heard wings beating beneath the stone. The Meisters blamed it on the restless fires of the volcano, but Gaiman Targaryen knew better. He could feel it in his blood. Something ancient had awoken. He tried to carry on as before, keeping his secret close. Yet the change within him grew harder to hide. His eyes, once violet, had taken on a faint amber gleam in the firelight. His hands trembled when the night grew hot. When he dreamed, he saw flames licking through black skies, and a voice calling his name from the depths of molten rock. Alis Velaryon stayed near, though fear haunted her gaze. "You're not sleeping," she said one night as they stood upon the battlements, the sea crashing below. "Every time I see you, your eyes are darker. You burn from within." "I can't rest," Gaiman confessed. "The thing beneath us, the spirit, the shadow, it isn't gone. It speaks to me. It says the dragon's doom was never in their death, but in our forgetting. It wants to rise again." "And if it does?" she asked softly. "Will it serve you or consume you?" He had no answer. Below them, the waves pounded the cliffs, sending plumes of spray into the air. The sea smelled of iron and storm. "If the queen knew what I had done," Gaiman murmured, "she would burn me alive." "She cannot burn what fire will not take," Alis said, almost bitterly, "but others might try." Her words proved true sooner than either expected. That very night, Sir Miles Mouton returned. He came not alone, but with 5 men-at-arms and a warrant bearing the Queen's seal. They stormed the lower vaults, dragging any who resisted from their posts. The rumor spread like wildfire through the castle. The prince had dabbled in forbidden sorcery. When the guards came for him, Gaiman did not flee. He stood in his chamber, calm as still water. "You mean to take me before the Queen?" he asked. Sir Miles's mouth twisted into a thin smile. "The Queen need not know of this just yet. The truth will be decided in private, before those who still serve the realm, not its ruin." At his command, they bound Gaiman's hands and led him down the winding stair toward the caverns below. Alis followed in secret, cloaked in shadow. She had known this might come and had hidden a dagger in her sleeve. When the guards reached the blackened door of the sealed vault, she crept behind them. Miles ordered his men to break the rubble aside. "The prince woke something here," he said. "If there is power in it, we will see it with our own eyes." They pried open the fallen stones, and a blast of heat rolled out. The air shimmered, the torches hissed, and faint red light bled from the fissures. Miles turned to Gaiman. "Show me what you did, and I'll spare your life." Gaiman met his gaze. "You wouldn't know what to do with it. It's not meant for you." The knight drew his sword and pressed the edge beneath Gaiman's chin. "Then I'll take it from your corpse." Before the blade could strike, the ground shuddered violently. The torches fell, scattering sparks across the floor. From the darkness below came a sound, not the rumble of stone, but a deep, echoing roar that made every man fall silent. Miles's face paled. 7 hells. The fissure split wider. A column of red fire burst upward, knocking the guards from their feet. Through the flame, a shape unfurled, a vast shadow of wings, molten eyes and scales formed of smoke and ember. Alis screamed, covering her face from the heat. The creature's voice thundered through the cavern, not aloud, but in the mind of all who stood there. "Blood of my blood, awaken." Gaiman tore free of his bindings, fire flowing along his arms like living light. "It knows me," he whispered. Miles staggered back. "What are you?" "Fire made flesh," Gaiman said, though even he feared the truth of it. The shadow dragon lowered its head toward him. The air around it shimmered, and for an instant, Gaiman saw not smoke, but the faint outline of bone and sinew, as if the creature were trying to take form. He felt its hunger, its need to live again, and his blood answered in kind. Alis cried out, "Gaiman, stop! It will kill us all!" Her voice cut through the haze of heat and power, and Gaiman turned toward her. For the briefest moment, he saw his reflection in her wide eyes, not a prince, but a thing wreathed in fire. He thrust out his hand, shouting words in High Valyrian that had come to him in dreams. The shadow roared and drew back, its wings beating storms through the cavern. The fire that filled the air collapsed inward, swallowing the creature whole. Silence followed, broken only by the hiss of cooling stone. When the smoke cleared, Gaiman knelt alone amid the ashes. The orb was gone, its light extinguished. Miles and his men lay scattered upon the ground, alive but senseless. Only Alis remained standing. She stepped forward, trembling. "Is it over?" Gaiman shook his head. "No, it's within me now. The fire is awake, and it wants more." Outside, thunder rolled across the sea. The clouds above Dragonstone flared with strange red lightning, as though the heavens themselves were aflame. Alis reached for him. "Then we must leave this place. The Queen's spies will come again, and they will not stop until they burn what's left of you." Gaiman looked toward the castle's highest tower, where the banners of House Targaryen fluttered weakly in the wind. "I was born without a dragon," he said quietly. "Now I fear I have become one." Before dawn, they fled the castle through a secret tunnel that led down to the black shore. The sea was wild and the night full of storm, yet they found an old skiff tied among the rocks. As they pushed off into the dark waves, Dragonstone loomed behind them like a mountain of shadow and flame, and from its depths, faint and distant, came one last echoing roar. Neither beast nor man, but something caught between. Alis gripped the oars, her face pale in the lightning's glare. "Where will we go?" Gaiman looked to the east, where the sky burned faintly with dawn. "To the lands where dragons first flew," he said, "to Valyria's grave. If the fire will not die, then perhaps it must return to where it was born." The sea carried them onward, into the storm, while behind them the island trembled once more, its heart pulsing with the fire of something that refused to be forgotten. The voyage east was long and perilous. Storms lashed the narrow sea as though the gods themselves sought to drive the fugitives back. For 3 days and nights, Gaiman and Alis fought the waves in silence, their small skiff tossed like a toy upon the black waters. The wind tore at their cloaks, salt stung their eyes, and lightning carved bright scars across the sky. When at last the storm broke, they found themselves adrift upon a calm and endless sea. The dawn that rose was pale and cold, the horizon shrouded in mist. The sail hung in tatters, and the oars were worn to splinters. Alis tended to Gaiman's blistered hands, wrapping them with strips of linen. "You should rest," she said gently. "I cannot," Gaiman murmured. His gaze lingered on the horizon, where the mist thickened into shapes like towers. "The fire does not let me. He had changed since they fled Dragonstone. His voice carried a strange echo, soft but resonant, like embers crackling beneath each word. At night, his skin seemed to glow faintly, as if light moved beneath it. Alis pretended not to see, but she feared what it meant. On the fourth day, they saw land. It was a jagged coast of black stone and crimson sand, shrouded in smoke that rose from fissures in the earth. The air shimmered with heat. The ruins of towers jutted from the cliffs like broken teeth. "Valyria," Gaiman whispered. Alis crossed herself in fear. "The doom's ashes. No ship dares these waters." "Then no ship will follow," he said. They steered the battered skiff toward a narrow inlet and ran aground upon a beach of obsidian pebbles. The moment Gaiman set foot upon the shore, the air stirred with a low hum, as if the land itself recognized his blood. He turned in a slow circle, taking in the broken majesty of the place. "This was where it began," he said softly. "Fire and blood forged the world here. My house is but a shadow of it." "And what do you hope to find?" Alis asked. "Answers," he replied, "or an end." They made their way inland along a cracked road half swallowed by vines. The ruins that loomed on either side were silent, but not lifeless. Pools of molten stone glowed in the cracks, and strange whispers carried on the wind. The air smelled of ash and old sorrow. By nightfall, they reached what had once been a city, a vast expanse of fallen domes and shattered spires. In the center stood a single intact structure, a black pyramid crowned with iron gargoyles. Its gates were sealed with chains as thick as a man's arm. Gaiman's hand brushed the stone, and it quivered beneath his touch. "It remembers," he murmured. Alis drew back. "Do not open it. Let the dead keep their secrets." But he was already pressing upon the door. The chains fell away with a clatter that echoed through the ruin. A gust of hot air rushed forth, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and decay. Inside, the pyramid was vast and hollow, its walls etched with Valyrian runes. A great pit yawned at its center, its depths glowing faintly red. Gaiman descended the crumbling steps until he stood upon the lip of the abyss. The whispers began again, stronger now, clearer. "Blood of my blood, you have come home." Alis called after him, her voice trembling. "Gaiman, what do you hear?" He did not answer. His eyes had turned fully golden, reflecting the fire below. He stepped closer to the pit, feeling the heat rise against his skin. In its depths, shadows moved like living things. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A crack split the floor, and a burst of flame shot upward. Alis screamed as she stumbled back. From the heart of the pit, something began to climb. A colossal shape forged of smoke and molten light. It was the same shadow dragon he had seen beneath Dragonstone, but greater now, more solid. Its wings unfolded, brushing the walls with streams of fire. Its roar shook the very stones. Gaiman fell to his knees. "What are you?" The creature's voice echoed in his mind. "I am the fire that birthed your house. I am the first flame, the breath that gave dragons life. You freed me from shadow, Gaiman of the blood. Now you must finish what your forebears began." Alis's cry reached him through the roar. "Don't listen. It's not life you'll find here. It's death." But Gaiman could not turn away. He felt the fire within him answer the call. The air shimmered around him. His veins burned with molten light. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. To rise again, to burn away the rod of men who forgot their fire. "You will be my vessel." Alis rushed forward, grasping his arm. "Gaiman, fight it! You are not its servant." For a heartbeat, their eyes met. In hers, he saw terror, and love. In his, she saw the reflection of a god. He wrenched his arm free, the fire flaring so bright she had to shield her eyes. "If this power was born of my blood," he said, his voice like thunder, "then I will command it, not the other way around." The dragon's roar shook the chamber. "You cannot master fire. You are fire." Flame poured from the pit, engulfing Gaiman completely. Alis screamed and leapt forward, but the heat drove her back. When the blaze dimmed, he was gone. Only the echo of wings filled the darkness. Moments later, the fire collapsed inward. The pit fell silent once more. Alis stumbled to the edge, tears burning down her cheeks. Then she heard it, a low, steady breath. From the shadows emerged Gaiman, barefoot and unburned. His hair glowed like molten silver, and smoke coiled from his skin. Behind him, the great dragon's form lingered like a reflection of his own. "It is done," he said. Alis dared not move. "What have you become?" He looked at his hands, where faint tongues of flame danced between his fingers, something that should never have been. Outside, the night sky over Valyria blazed red. Rivers of fire ran through the ruins, and the ground trembled as if in welcome. Gaiman turned his gaze eastward, toward the dark horizon. "The fire calls me onward," he said. "There are dragons sleeping beneath these lands, and they will wake." Alis reached for him, but he stepped away, the flames wrapping around him like a cloak. "Go back," he said softly. "Tell them that fire yet lives." Then, with a sound like wings unfurling, he was gone, vanishing into the smoke and heat, leaving her alone amid the ruins of the world that birthed him. And above the dead city, a roar rose once more, vast, eternal, and terrible, the herald of a new dawn born in flame. When dawn came to the smoking shores of Valyria, the world was silent, but for the crackle of distant fire. The air shimmered with heat. The ruins glowed faintly as though the stones themselves remembered flame. Alis Velaryon stood at the edge of the blackened city, staring at the crimson horizon. She had not slept. The night had been filled with tremors, with the sound of things long dead, shifting beneath the earth. Gaiman was gone. He had walked into the fire as if it were a door, and the flames had swallowed him. Yet she could not bring herself to leave. Something in her heart refused to believe that he was truly lost. She wrapped her cloak tighter and began her search. Through the ruins, she walked, past the toppled towers, through streets half buried in ash, across bridges that crumbled beneath her feet. The silence pressed upon her like a weight. Once, she fancied she heard wings overhead, but when she looked up, only heat haze shimmered against the pale sky. Near midday, she came upon a valley ringed with cliffs of obsidian. At its center lay a great lake of molten rock, its surface glowing like the heart of a forge. The air shimmered with unseen energy, and in that glow, she saw him. Gaiman stood upon a jagged rock at the lake's edge, the heat swirling about him without harm. His hair streamed like silver fire, and his bare hands glowed with faint embers. Around him, shadows flickered, vast, winged shapes gliding just beneath the molten surface. He turned as she approached, his eyes golden and strange. "You should not have come." Alis stopped a dozen paces away, shielding her face from the heat. "I came because you are still my prince, whatever you have become." His expression softened, though it carried a weariness she had never seen. "No prince remains. The blood of my house has burned away. What stands before you is something else." "Then what are you?" He looked toward the molten lake. "A bridge between what was and what will be. The fire speaks through me now. It shows me visions, cities reborn in flame, dragons rising from ash, the world remade. She shook her head, horror and sorrow warring in her eyes. "You sound like a madman." "Perhaps madness and destiny are kin," he said quietly. "The fire does not lie. It remembers every soul that ever bore its mark." He raised a hand, and the lake stirred. From the molten depths rose the shape of a dragon, vast, skeletal, and terrible. Its wings unfolded with a hiss like the breaking of the world. Flames dripped from its bones. Aelys stumbled back. "Seven, save us." Gaiman's voice deepened as he spoke. "They sleep beneath this land, dreaming of the fire that once gave them life. I can wake them." "You would bring back monsters." "I would bring back what was lost," he said fiercely. "Do you not see? The dragons died because men forgot what they were. Creatures of fire, not flesh. The fire must have a vessel, Aelys. It chose me." She looked upon him trembling. "And what of the cost? The doom began with such pride. You would call it back?" Gaiman's golden eyes flickered. For a heartbeat, the man she had known shone through, the boy who had wandered the cold halls of Dragonstone, dreaming of flight. "I only wanted to save my house," he whispered, "to give meaning to the ashes." "Then save it by letting go," she pleaded. "End this before it consumes you." Before he could answer, the ground shuddered. Cracks split the cliffs. The molten lake surged. From the churning fire rose three new shapes, dragons of living flame, their roars echoing across the valley. They circled above, their bodies blazing like the sun. Gaiman staggered as if struck. "They're bound to me," he gasped. "I cannot control them." The dragons screamed and wheeled through the sky, raining sparks upon the ruins. The earth shook with each beat of their wings. Aelys ran to him, shouting over the roar. "Then stop them before they burn the world anew." He fell to his knees, pressing his hands to the ground. Fire poured from his palms, spreading across the cracked stone like veins of light. The dragons shrieked, twisting midair as though fighting unseen chains. The effort tore through him. Blood ran from his nose and mouth, glowing faintly red. "I can bind them," he gasped, "but it will cost me. Gaiman." He looked up at her, and in that moment he smiled, a small, broken smile that spoke of peace. "Tell them I was not the last of my line," he said. "Tell them the fire still burns." Before she could reach him, he drove his hands deeper into the stone. The valley erupted in a blinding flash. Flame consumed the sky. The air roared like 1,000 dragons crying out at once. Aelys was thrown backward, her scream lost to the storm of fire. When she awoke, the world was still. The lake had cooled to black glass, its surface cracked and steaming. No dragons flew above. No sound broke the silence but the hiss of cooling rock. Gaiman was gone. She rose unsteadily, her body scorched and aching. At the center of the valley, where the molten lake had been, stood a single figure of blackened stone, Gaiman's likeness, hands outstretched, eyes cast heavenward. Aelys fell to her knees before it. "You did it," she whispered. "You ended it." A faint breeze stirred, carrying with it the scent of smoke and something older, something like the memory of dragons. She looked to the horizon. In the far distance, where the sea met the sky, she thought she saw a single spark rise and fade into the dawn. With slow steps, she left the valley behind. Days later, a passing ship of Lycene traders found her adrift upon a makeshift raft, half-starved and fevered. When they asked what had happened, she spoke little. Only one phrase passed her lips again and again. "The fire sleeps, but not forever." Years later, sailors spoke of strange lights above the smoking sea, red glows like wings unfurling beneath the clouds. The ruins of Valyria shifted, the earth trembling as if something vast turned in its dreams. And on stormy nights, when thunder rolled over Dragonstone, the Meisters said they heard faint echoes from across the sea, the distant cry of dragons, and a man's voice calling their names. Thus the tale of Gaemon the Fireborn passed into legend, half forgotten by time, whispered only by those who still believed that fire, once kindled, never truly dies. Years passed, though the world remembered little of what had transpired in the smoking ruins of Valyria. The sea had swallowed much, and men were content to forget what lay beneath its restless waves. Yet some tales endure like embers buried in ash, waiting for a wind to stir them to life. Far to the west, across the narrow sea, the realm rebuilt itself from war and ruin. The dance of the dragons had ended, leaving behind only bones, burnt fields, and ghosts. The great beasts were gone, their riders buried or scattered. The Iron Throne stood silent, its cruel edges gleaming beneath the hall's pale light. But not all fire had died. On Dragonstone, storms came harder than before, as if the island itself grieved. The cliffs smoked even when there was no lightning, and strange red light sometimes glowed beneath the waves. The Maesters wrote of volcanic unrest, but the small folk whispered other things, of dragons stirring in the deep, of a prince who had never truly perished. In the castle's highest tower, a new ruler watched the restless sea. Lady Rhaenyra Targaryen, last of her line upon the island, was a woman of keen mind and sharp spirit. Her hair was pale as moonlight, her eyes the deep violet of her ancestors. She had been a child during the war, but carried its scars upon her heart. One stormy night, a raven arrived from the citadel. It bore a warning. Strange fires have been sighted upon the horizon of the smoking sea. Mariners speak of a figure walking upon the waves, wreathed in flame. Rhaenyra dismissed it as superstition, yet the message lingered in her thoughts. When sleep eluded her, she climbed the sea tower and gazed eastward. The storm clouds rolled low, and for an instant she thought she saw a flicker of red upon the horizon, a distant, pulsing light. Weeks later, a ship limped into Dragonstone's harbor, its hull scorched black. The sailors were half mad with fear. They told of waters that boiled beneath them, of whispers rising from the deep, of a shadow flying above the clouds, vast and unseen but real enough to turn the sea to flame. "The doom stirs again," the captain rasped before collapsing. That very night, the mountain beneath the castle trembled. From its heart rose a sound no living man had heard in a century, the cry of a dragon. The alarm bells rang through the keep. Knights and servants flooded the courtyards, staring skyward as smoke poured from the mountaintop. Lightning split the clouds, and in the glare of that moment, Rhaenyra saw it, something vast moving within the storm. Its wings blotted the moon. But when dawn came, no sign remained. The skies were empty, the mountains silent once more. The Meister called it fancy born of fear, yet Rhaenyra could not shake what she had seen. She began to search the castle archives, poring over old scrolls and half-burned journals from the time of the dance. There she found mention of a name seldom spoken. Prince Gaemon Targaryen, third son of a lesser line, lost during the Queen's reign, presumed dead at sea. Among the records was a single note penned in a trembling hand. The prince found what should have remained buried: fire without flesh, shadow without end. Rhaenyra frowned. "Fire without flesh," she murmured. As the days passed, the storms grew fiercer. The mountain glowed red at night, and once the The servants swore they saw light beneath the great hall's floor, as though something burned deep in the rock. At last, Rhaenyra descended into the old tunnels beneath Dragonstone. The air there was thick and hot, and the walls pulsed faintly with warmth. Her torch hissed in the stale air. She passed old carvings of dragons and Targaryen kings, their faces worn smooth by centuries. Then she came upon a sealed door of black stone. Across its surface were etched Valyrian runes, half erased but still legible. Beneath shadow sleeps the flame that should not wake. The words filled her with dread and curiosity in equal measure. She pressed her hand to the door. It was warm, alive. For a heartbeat, she thought she heard a faint whisper in her blood. Blood of my blood. Rhaenyra drew back sharply, her torch flickering. Who's there? The darkness offered no answer. That night she dreamed of fire. She stood upon a plain of ash, the sky crimson with smoke. A figure emerged from the haze, a man with hair like molten silver and eyes of gold. Who are you? She demanded. The figure smiled sadly. You bear my name's echo, he said. The world forgot me, yet my fire endures. Gaiman? She whispered. He nodded. I burned for them all, and still the flame remains. Dragonstone's heart beats with what I left behind. When the world needs fire once more, it will awaken. Why show yourself to me? Because you are the last. The blood calls to blood. Guard it well, for others will seek it. Men who crave power, not purpose. Before she could speak again, the world split apart in flame. She awoke with a cry, drenched in sweat, the taste of smoke on her tongue. At dawn, she found the maester waiting. My lady, he said gravely, a rider from Driftmark arrived before sunrise. He brings dire news. The smoking sea burns anew. The waters themselves are aflame. Rhaenyra turned toward the east-facing window. The horizon glowed faintly red, though the sun had not yet risen. In her heart, she felt the pulse of something deep beneath her feet, a rhythm slow and powerful, like the heartbeat of the earth. She whispered to herself, the fire sleeps, but not forever. Outside, the wind carried the scent of ash across the sea, and high above Dragonstone, the clouds began to swirl, as if vast wings stirred them from below. And somewhere, far beneath the island, in chambers where no light had touched for an age, a spark flared to life, small and hungry. The world had forgotten Gaiman Targaryen, but fire, once kindled, remembers. 3 moons had passed since the fire first stirred beneath Dragonstone, and still the island trembled. The nights grew long and restless. The skies bled red at dusk. Fishermen spoke of the sea boiling near the cliffs, of glowing shapes that moved beneath the waves. In the villages, the people whispered that the dragons had returned, though no one had seen their wings. Lady Rhaenyra Targaryen had not slept soundly since that dream. Each night, she felt the pull of something deep below, the same whisper that had haunted the blood of her forebears. She hid her fear well, but her maester, old Alric, saw it in her eyes. You spend too much time in the dark places, my lady, he warned one morning as they walked along the sea wall. Dragonstone's heart burns hotter every day. If you stir what sleeps beneath, it may wake again. Rhaenyra looked to the horizon, where smoke hung like a shroud. If it is already stirring, then it is too late for silence. The maester sighed. Fire obeys no master, my lady. Remember that. But she could not forget the dream. The man of molten hair, the promise of fire reborn. If what she had seen was true, then Prince Gaiman's flame still lingered somewhere in the bones of the world. That evening, she sent for Ser Roderick Teltagar, her sworn sword, and the two descended once more into the tunnels beneath the castle. The air grew thicker as they went, the heat pressing against their skin like a living thing. "7 save us," Roderick muttered as sweat glistened on his brow. "It feels as though we walk into the belly of a beast." "Perhaps we do," Rhaenyra replied. At last they reached the black door where she had once felt the whisper. This time, the runes upon its surface glowed faintly, like embers breathing in the dark. Roderick drew his sword. "You mean to open it?" "Yes," she said. "If the fire within this island is rising, I must know its source." With both hands, she pressed against the stone. The warmth surged through her palms, and the runes flared bright red. The door shuddered and split apart, releasing a wave of heat and smoke. Beyond lay a vast chamber carved from the living rock. The walls were lined with ancient Valyrian sigils, and at its center stood a blackened altar. Above it hung a faint red glow, pulsing like a heart. Rhaenyra stepped forward, her breath catching in her throat. "The heart of Dragonstone," she whispered. Upon the altar rested a shard of crystal, dark as obsidian, but alive with inner fire. It burned with the same light she had seen in her dream. Roderick crossed himself. "By all the gods, what is it?" "The blood of the earth," she said softly. "The same relic Gaiman found." As her fingers brushed the crystal, the chamber shuddered. The air filled with whispers in the tongue of old Valyria, words too ancient for her to understand, yet their meaning filled her mind. Blood calls to blood. Fire remembers its own. A vision struck her then, of the sea aflame, of dragons screaming across a blood-red sky, of a figure standing upon a tower of fire. His eyes were gold, his voice the echo of thunder. "The world has forgotten the price of peace," he said. "When men grow cold, the fire returns to claim what is owed." Rhaenyra gasped and stumbled back, the vision breaking. The crystal's glow dimmed, though its warmth remained. Roderick caught her arm. "My lady, are you hurt?" "I saw him," she whispered. "Gaiman Targaryen. He is not gone. His fire sleeps in this stone." "Then we should cast it into the sea," Roderick said quickly. "No good can come of such things." Rhaenyra shook her head. "If we destroy it, the fire will seek another vessel. It must be guarded." They sealed the door again and returned to the upper halls, but Rhaenyra's thoughts lingered in the dark. That night, she placed the crystal within a silver casket and kept it beside her bed. When sleep finally took her, the dream returned. Gaiman, standing upon a field of ash. "You cannot cage fire," he told her. "It will burn through stone and flesh alike. You must choose, let it fade or let it rise." "I do not understand," she said. "You will," he whispered, "when the storm comes." At dawn, she woke to the sound of bells. A rider from King's Landing had arrived, Sir Loren Waters, a bastard knight once sworn to the crown. His armor was scorched, his cloak torn by flame. "My lady," he said, kneeling before her. "The capital burns. Fires rise from the dragon pits, though no dragons live. The king fears sorcery and sends word to all who bear the blood of Valyria. He bids you come, for he believes you may know the cause." Rhaenyra's heart pounded. "The fires have spread already." "The small folk say they see shadows in the smoke," Loren said grimly. "Wings without flesh, and there are whispers of a voice calling from across the sea. Your ancestor's name." That night, as Rhaenyra prepared for the voyage to King's Landing, she stood once more upon the cliffs. The wind carried the scent of ash, and the sea glowed faintly red. Far away, she thought she heard the beat of distant wings. "Fire sleeps," she murmured, recalling Aelys Valerian's old words. "But not forever." She turned to Ser Roderick. "Ready the ship. We sail at first light. The knight bowed, though unease shadowed his face. "Aye, my lady. But if what you carry is what you say, we may be bringing doom with us." Rhaenyra looked eastward, where lightning danced over the sea. "Perhaps doom is already upon us," she said. "Perhaps it never truly left." And as the storm gathered, the crystal in her casket throbbed softly, like a living heart. Beneath the island, unseen, the fires stirred once more, ancient veins of magma glowing brighter with each passing breath. By dawn, Dragonstone smoked like a slumbering giant, and those who watched from the harbor swore they saw a shape move in the clouds above, a great shadow unfurling its wings against the blood-red sky. They called it an omen, though none could say of what. Yet in the hearts of all who bore the blood of dragons, a strange warmth awakened, as if some long-forgotten part of their soul had stirred from its sleep. The fire remembered. It always did. The voyage to King's Landing was long and haunted by restless storms. The narrow sea churned as if stirred by unseen forces, and lightning clawed at the sky night after night. Lady Rhaenyra stood at the prow of her ship, her cloak whipped by the wind, eyes fixed on the horizon where the faint red glow of the east still burned. Below deck, the silver casket never cooled. The Maester's wrappings could not stifle its heat. The crystal pulsed faintly, like a slumbering heart, each beat matching the rhythm of the waves. On the 7th night, a sailor went missing. He had been seen near the hold, staring at the casket's faint light, whispering to it in broken Valyrian. When they found him the next morning, he was floating in the wake behind the ship, eyes open, body unmarked, a thin line of smoke curling from his mouth. Rhaenyra ordered the casket locked away and posted guards. None were to touch it again, but even then, she dreamed of fire. At last, King's Landing appeared on the horizon, its towers black against the gray sky, the city wrapped in haze. Smoke rose from the south, where the dragon pits once stood. The city smelled of ash long before they reached the docks. The king's men met her with little ceremony. The realm was restless, the court fearful. They escorted her through streets lined with refugees and the burned shells of houses. She saw children huddled in doorways, their faces streaked with soot, their eyes too old for their years. When she reached the Red Keep, the great hall stood near empty. The Iron Throne loomed like a shadowed beast, and before it sat King Daeron II, silver-haired, weary-eyed, the weight of his crown heavy upon him. He rose as she entered. "Lady Rhaenyra," he said, his voice carrying the ring of authority softened by exhaustion. "You are kin, though distant. The blood of the dragon flows in your veins, and so I sent for you. Tell me, what curse burns my city?" She knelt. "Your Grace, the fire you see is no curse but remembrance. It is the same that forged our house in ancient Valyria, the same that sleeps beneath Dragonstone." The king frowned. "You speak of old legends, yet men die in my streets, and the Septons say the Seven have turned away. Tell me plainly, what awakens this fire?" Rhaenyra hesitated. The truth, if spoken, would sound like madness, yet she felt the weight of the casket at her side, warm even through its chains. "An echo of Prince Gaemon," she said at last. "He bound the fire of Valyria to his blood. It sleeps still, but the world stirs it to wakefulness. The wars, the fear. Fire answers to fire." The king's expression darkened. "And you bring this echo here, to my court?" She met his gaze. "If it wakes, no wall will keep it out. Better it be understood than feared." The court murmured. One of the king's counselors, Lord Hightower, stepped forward. "Sire, burn it, cast it into the sea and end this folly before it consumes us all." But Daeron lifted a hand. "If what she says is true, the sea will not quench it. Bring the relic forth." Rhaenyra hesitated, then opened the casket. The crystal lay within, its dark surface alive with swirling embers. The hall dimmed as its light filled the chamber, red, gold, and fierce. Whispers spread through the courtiers. The king himself took an involuntary step back. "What sorcery is this?" he murmured. The air shimmered, and a voice, soft, ancient, and terrible, filled the hall. "Blood of my blood, you have brought me home." Rhaenyra gasped. "Gaemon!" The courtiers cried out. Some fled the hall, others drew steel. The crystal flared, and from its heart rose a shadow, a man's shape, tall and regal, his hair a blaze of molten silver, his eyes golden flame. "I have slept long," said the spirit, his voice echoing against the stone. "But the world is cold again. The blood forgets its fire." The king's sword hissed from its sheath. "Begone, spirit. I am the king of Westeros, and no ghost commands me." Gaemon's shadow turned toward him, his expression calm yet sorrowful. "You sit upon a throne of swords forged in dragon flame, yet you know not the fire that made them. You have chained your blood to peace and fear." Daeron's jaw tightened. "Peace is not shame." "Peace without fire is death," Gaemon said. With that, the light flared so bright the torches went dark. The floor trembled. The iron throne itself groaned as the metal beneath it glowed faintly red. "Stop!" Rhaenyra cried, stepping between them. "You'll destroy them all." Gaemon's gaze softened as it fell upon her. "You bear my fire, child. You alone may temper it." "I cannot control you," she shouted. "You need not control fire," he said. "You must guide it." Then the light burst outward like a sun. Windows shattered. The courtiers fell to the ground. When the glow faded, the crystal was gone. Only ashes remained. Rhaenyra stood trembling, her skin unburned but her eyes alight with golden fire. The king stared at her in horror. "What have you done?" She looked down at her hands, where faint embers danced upon her fingertips. "I have inherited what was his," she said quietly. "It is bound to me now." The king's voice broke with fear and awe. "Then you are cursed." "Perhaps," she said, "but the curse is also a gift." That night the fires in the city dimmed. The smoke cleared. Yet across the narrow sea, near the ruins of Valyria, sailors spoke of strange lights in the clouds, like wings spreading across the sky. And in the Red Keep, beneath the full moon, Lady Rhaenyra stood upon her balcony, the wind whipping through her hair. She felt the fire stir within her veins, calling her eastward. "Blood of my blood," she whispered into the night. "If this is what remains of your flame, then let me bear it until the world forgets again." Far below, the city slept, unaware of the power reborn in its heart. And from the east, faint but growing, came the sound of thunder, no storm, but the beating of vast wings returning to the world. For a time, King's Landing knew a strange peace. The fires that had raged in the southern quarter died without wind or water. The sky cleared, and the smell of ash faded from the streets. Yet within the Red Keep, the air remained heavy, as though the stones themselves still remembered flame. Lady Rhaenyra Targaryen kept to her chambers, seeing few save her maester and the king. The crystal that had held Gaemon's spirit was gone, but its fire lived in her blood. Her eyes glowed faintly in candlelight. Her skin carried warmth even when the air turned cold. When she slept, she dreamed of dragons, vast shadows gliding over seas of molten gold, their cries echoing like thunder. One night, she dreamed again of Gaemon. He stood upon the black cliffs of Dragonstone, his silver hair rippling in a wind of sparks. "You have taken my fire," he said, his voice neither kind nor cruel. "Now you must bear its weight." "I do not wish to rule the fire," she told him. He smiled faintly. "None ever did, yet it rules you still." She woke with a start, her chamber filled with red light. The braziers blazed, though she had not lit them. She touched her hand to the bedpost, and the carved wood hissed, charred beneath her fingers. The fire answered her now, unbidden. By dawn, the maester had learned of it. "You must leave the city, my lady," he said as he tended to her trembling hands. "The people already whisper that witchcraft keeps the fires at bay. If they learn the truth, they will see another Targaryen cursed by her blood," she finished. "I know." That same morning, a messenger came from the docks. A ship had washed ashore near the Blackwater, an empty vessel, its sails burned away, its timbers scorched but unbroken. On its prow, in Valyrian runes, was carved a single word: Gaemon. Rhaenyra felt the call as surely as if it had spoken aloud. "He summons me," she whispered. The king forbade her departure. "If you go, the lords will think the blood of the dragon turns traitor again," he said. "I cannot allow it." But she had already made her choice. That night, she donned a dark cloak and slipped from the Red Keep with Sir Roderick at her side. Together they rowed to the docks and boarded a small galley bound for Dragonstone. The sea was calm when they left the harbor, but by the second night, the winds rose. Lightning split the horizon and waves battered the hull. Amid the storm, Rhaenyra stood at the bow, unafraid. The fire within her pulsed in rhythm with the thunder, as if answering the storm's fury. Roderick gripped the railing beside her. "The gods themselves seem to fight our passage." "Not gods," she said. "Something older." At dawn, Dragonstone rose from the mist, black and jagged, wreathed in smoke. The volcano's peak glowed faintly, like a coal beneath ash. As their ship neared the shore, they saw the castle's towers cracked and scorched. The garrison had fled, only gulls and silence remained. They climbed the long stair to the keep, their steps echoing through empty halls. Dust hung in the air like mist. In the great hall, the carved dragons upon the pillars seemed to watch her, their eyes glinting with reflected fire. "It feels alive," Roderick murmured. "It is," Rhaenyra said. "This is where it began." She led him down into the caverns below, where once Gaemon had found the relic that doomed and blessed them all. The walls glowed with faint veins of red. The air trembled with heat. At the chamber's heart stood the black altar, untouched since Gaemon's time. Upon it lay nothing, no crystal, no relic, only the mark of a hand seared into the stone. Rhaenyra knelt beside it. "He burned himself into the rock," she whispered. "Fire made flesh." As she spoke, the ground shook. From the fissures in the floor poured thin streams of molten light. Roderick drew his sword, though he knew no steel could guard them here. Then came the voice, soft, distant, yet clear. "Blood of my blood, you have returned." "Gaemon!" she cried. "Why do you call me here?" "The world grows cold again. Men forget what they were. The fire must rise, or all will fall to shadow." "Peace reigns," she said. "The dragons are gone, but men endure. Must we burn the world to remember it? Without fire, there is no life." The fissures widened. Heat flooded the chamber. Shadows coiled upon the walls like wings unfurling. Rhaenyra staggered as the air shimmered around her, her blood blazing. The spirit of Gaemon rose from the altar, a shape of light and smoke. "You cannot contain me forever," he said. "Then I will not contain you," she answered, "but neither will I let you destroy them." He regarded her for a long moment, his golden eyes flickering like flame. "Then you would bind the fire to yourself?" "If I must," she said. "Better one heart burns than 1,000. He reached toward her, his hand passing through her chest like smoke. Fire surged through her veins, brighter than any pain she had ever known. She screamed, yet did not fall. The chamber blazed with light. Roderick shielded his eyes, shouting her name. When the brilliance faded, Gaiman was gone. Rhaenyra stood alone, her hair pale as frost, her eyes twin embers. The air around her shimmered, the fissures sealed, the heat dimmed. Roderick fell to his knees. "My lady, what are you now?" She looked down at her hands. They glowed faintly, as though light lived beneath her skin. "The last of the fire," she said softly. They left the caverns in silence. Above them, the storm had passed. The sky burned crimson with dawn, the sea calm as glass. When they reached the shore, Rhaenyra turned to look upon Dragonstone one final time. "It sleeps again," she said, "but I will not." "And where will you go?" asked Roderick. "East," she said, "to Valeria's grave. The fire began there, and there it shall rest." He bowed his head. "Then I will follow." Together, they boarded a small vessel left abandoned by the garrison. As the wind filled its sail, Rhaenyra placed her hand upon the prow. The wood hissed, leaving the faintest trace of a burned sigil, a dragon wreathed in flame. The ship glided eastward toward the smoking sea, where the horizon glowed faintly red. And though the air was still, a low sound followed them, a distant rumble like wings beating against the sky. The fire was not gone. It merely followed its bearer, waiting for the day when the world grew cold once more. The smoking sea awaited them like a vision from some darker age of the world. For 3 days and nights, the waters turned black beneath the ship's keel, their surface slick with strange oils that shimmered red when the sun broke through the clouds. The air smelled of brimstone and metal. No bird flew above those waves, and the crew, hardened men of Driftmark, spoke little, crossing themselves whenever the sea hissed, as if boiling from beneath. Rhaenyra Targaryen stood at the prow, her pale hair whipped by the acrid wind. The fire inside her blood pulsed with each beat of the ship's oars, guiding her toward the unseen heart of the ruin. Each night, she dreamed of a mountain wreathed in flame, of wings made from smoke, and a voice calling her name from the abyss. Roderick Celtigar watched her from afar, troubled by what he saw. She no longer ate, and her eyes burned brighter than the lanterns that hung upon the mast. The men began to whisper that she was no longer wholly mortal, that the fire of the old prince had consumed her soul. On the 4th dawn, the mists parted, revealing a coastline of jagged cliffs and steaming fissures. The ruins of Valyria rose before them, towers half sunk into molten rock, bridges twisted like serpents, rivers of glowing stone winding through what had once been a city of marvels. The sky above shimmered with heat, casting everything in hues of copper and blood. The ship could go no further. The waters were too hot to bear. Rhaenyra ordered the longboat lowered, though the crew begged her to turn back. "No mortal returns from Valyria," one cried. "Then I shall not return," she answered, "but the fire will rest." Roderick went with her, despite his fear. They rowed through choking steam until the oars struck solid ground, a beach of black glass that crackled beneath their boots. No life stirred there, yet the air trembled with power, like the breath of a slumbering god. They climbed the ruined causeway toward the city's heart. As they went, molten light pulsed beneath the streets, tracing ancient patterns between the stones. Dragons carved in basalt loomed over them. their eyes filled with smoldering gems. Roderick muttered a prayer. "Seven save us all. This place is cursed." "Cursed or blessed," Rhaenyra said softly. "It is where we began." They reached a great plaza ringed with broken columns. At its center yawned a pit vast as a lake, its depths glowing crimson. Waves of heat rolled from it, and the air shimmered with shapes, wings, claws, the vague outlines of dragons made from smoke. "This was the heart of old Valyria," Rhaenyra said, "where the 14 flames met. Here the first dragon lords bound fire to their blood." She stepped toward the edge. The pit seemed to breathe, each exhalation rumbling through the earth. "Do you hear it, Roderick?" He shook his head. "I hear only the mountain's death." "It's not dying," she said. "It's waiting." Before he could stop her, she spread her arms and began to speak in the tongue of old Valyria, words that no man had uttered since the doom. The air thickened. The ground split beneath her feet. Light burst from the cracks, coiling around her like living flame. "Rhaenyra!" Roderick shouted, but the heat drove him back. The fire did not burn her. It wrapped her in its glow, lifting her from the ground. Her hair blazed like silver fire. Her eyes turned to molten gold. "Blood of my blood," came the voice from below, the same that had haunted her dreams. It filled the sky, vast and sorrowful. "You have brought my fire home." "Gaemon," she whispered. The air above the pit twisted, and a shape emerged, a colossal dragon formed of light and smoke, its wings stretching across the heavens. Its body shimmered with molten scales, and its eyes were the color of dying suns. "You would end the flame?" the spirit asked. "I would free it," she said. "The world has burned enough. Without fire, it will freeze and die. Then let it die as it was meant to, in peace." The dragon's roar split the sky, shaking the ruins. "You defy your blood." "I honor it," she said. "Fire is not our birthright, it is our burden." She drew a dagger of Valyrian steel from her belt and cut her palm. Her blood fell in glowing drops that hissed as they struck the stone. "Take what remains," she cried, "and sleep." The dragon bent its vast head toward her. "So be it, daughter of my line. The fire will rest until the cold awakens it once more." It lowered its jaws, and the light consumed her. Roderick shielded his eyes as a wave of fire swept outward, engulfing the ruins. For a moment, all the world turned to light. Then the flames drew inward, collapsing into the pit like a dying star. Silence followed. The heat faded. The air grew still. When Roderick dared to look again, the pit was sealed with a sheet of glass smooth as ice. At its center stood Rhaenyra, her cloak unburned, her eyes closed. The glow had left her skin. She looked as mortal as she once had, but the fire was gone. He ran to her side. "My lady, speak to me." Her eyes fluttered open. "It's done," she whispered. "The fire sleeps." He helped her to her feet. "Can you walk?" "I can," she said faintly, "but I am not what I was." They left the city before the next dawn. As they rowed toward the waiting ship, Roderick looked back once. The mists were closing around Valyria again, hiding its towers from sight. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw wings, vast and spectral, rising from the pit before fading into the clouds. When they reached open sea, the waters were calm. The wind smelled clean for the first time in weeks. Rhaenyra stood at the stern, watching the horizon. Her eyes no longer shone with fire, yet a quiet strength burned within them. "He sleeps," she said, "and so shall the world." Roderick looked eastward, where the dawn was breaking in gold and red. "And if he wakes again?" She smiled faintly. "Then another will rise to bear the flame. It is the way of our blood." They sailed west, toward the fading light, leaving the smoking sea behind them. The waves were smooth, the sky brightening with morning. But deep beneath the waters, in the heart of the dead empire, something vast stirred once more. A slow, steady heartbeat echoing through stone and flame. The fire slept as she had willed it. Yet in every ember, in every dragon's bone that rested in the world's dark corners, the memory of Gaiman's flame endured. And in that memory, the promise of its return. When the black sails of Rhaenyra's ship rose once more upon the narrow sea, the wind carried no scent of smoke. The sky was washed clean by dawn, the waters calm as glass. For the first time in months, the air did not burn her lungs, yet she could not bring herself to look back. Somewhere far behind them, Valyria slept again beneath its own ashes. She could almost feel the pulse of it still, a deep, slow heartbeat muffled beneath the waves. Roderick stood beside her on the deck, his face weathered by salt and sleeplessness. "The men say the sea grows warmer each day," he told her quietly. "They fear what it means." "It means the fire is not gone," she said. "Only tamed." He frowned. "You gave your very blood to bind it. Shouldn't that be enough?" "Fire is never enough, Sir Roderick. It waits, it hungers, it remembers." The ship sailed west through the narrow straits. Islands slid by like ghosts in the mist. At night, when the stars shone faintly through the clouds, Rhaenyra would stand alone at the bow, feeling the world breathe around her. The warmth that had once burned so fiercely within her was now a faint ember deep in her chest. It did not hurt, but she knew it would never die completely. On the 12th night, a strange light flickered upon the horizon. The sailors whispered of wraiths, or perhaps wreckage burning on the waves. But Rhaenyra knew better. The fire was not in the sea. It was in the sky. A faint crimson shimmer that rolled across the clouds like the dying breath of a dragon. She watched it in silence until the dawn washed it away. By the time they reached Driftmark, word of their voyage had already spread. The Valyrians received her with wary awe. The small folk knelt when she passed, whispering, "Lady of Flame," though she forbade them to use the name. In King's Landing, tales had already begun to twist her story. Some said she had descended into hell itself to chain the spirits of the old dragons. Others, that she had bargained with demons of fire for her soul. When the king's summons came, Rhaenyra obeyed without delay. The Red Keep loomed above the city like a shadow from another age, its black stones streaked with soot from the great burning months past. King Daeron greeted her alone in the hall of the Iron Throne. He looked older than she remembered, his once silver hair streaked with white, his hands trembling slightly upon the pommel of his sword. "So," he said, "the Lady of Dragonstone returns. The fires in the city are gone, the smoke cleared. The people say the gods sent you." "I am no god's servant," Rhaenyra said. "Only the keeper of a burden that should have ended long ago." The king studied her. "And what of Valyria? Does it sleep?" "For now." He nodded slowly. "And if it wakes again?" "Then the world must remember what fire truly is," she replied. "Not glory, not power, a warning." Her words hung in the air like smoke. The king rose from his throne, stepping closer. "Our house was built on fire and blood," he said. "If you have mastered both, then perhaps you are the truest Targaryen of us all." "I have mastered nothing," she answered softly. "Only endured it." He smiled faintly, though there was sadness in it. "Then may endurance be our legacy." That night, she lodged within the castle walls, but she found no rest. She dreamt again of the smoking sea. In her dream, she walked upon a plain of glass, the sky above her filled with red stars. Beneath her feet, she felt the heartbeat again, slow, patient, eternal. And from the distance came a whisper, softer than ash. "Blood of my blood, not yet." She woke before dawn, her heart pounding. The air in her chamber was warm, though no fire burned. She went to the window and looked eastward. The sea was dark and still, but far away she thought she saw a single spark upon the horizon, small and distant as a candle flame. By morning, the court was already in uproar. Messengers from the stepstones brought word of tremors beneath the sea and columns of red smoke rising from the deep. Fishermen swore they saw serpents of fire beneath the waves. Rhaenyra said nothing. She only touched the scar upon her palm, where she had cut herself to bind the flame. It throbbed faintly, warm as living flesh. King Daeron summoned her to council, but before she could reach the chamber, a squire intercepted her with grim news. "The king is dead, my lady. He collapsed upon the throne. The maesters found no wound, but his hands were burned black as pitch. The realm mourned him as a gentle ruler, yet some whispered that the Iron Throne itself had turned against him." Rhaenyra stood at the foot of that cruel seat of swords and stared at the scorch marks along its armrest. They were faint, like the print of a dragon's claw. "Fire never forgets," she murmured. In the weeks that followed, she withdrew from court. She spent her days in the rookery, studying old scrolls of Valyrian prophecy, and her nights upon the cliffs of Dragonstone, listening to the sea. Roderick remained her only companion. One evening, he found her staring east again. "You see it too, don't you?" he said quietly. She nodded. "The glow has returned. The fire moves beneath the sea. It seeks another voice. Will you go back?" "No. My place is here. The flame will not rest if it sees its keeper flee. If it calls, I will answer, but on my terms." He hesitated. "And if it consumes you?" She looked at him then, her eyes soft, the golden light within them almost gone. "Then I will burn as all dragons must, but the fire will die with me." The waves crashed below, endless and dark. Above them, the moon broke through the clouds, pale and watchful. Rhaenyra drew her cloak tighter and turned toward the castle. "Come, Sir Roderick," she said. "There is still work to be done before dawn." And as they walked the winding path back to the keep, far out to sea, a red glow bloomed upon the horizon, faint but growing, like the heart of a world that refused to die. For the fire had slept before. It would sleep again, but it would never, ever be forgotten. Winter's edge came early that year. From the north blew a cold unlike any in living memory, a breath that bit deep into bone and stilled the sea. The small folks said it was the gods' punishment for old sins. Too much fire, too much blood. But on Dragonstone, Lady Rhaenyra Targaryen knew better. Fire slept, yes, yet the world itself seemed to hold its breath, as though awaiting the moment it might stir again. The castle stood grim and silent beneath gray skies. Smoke no longer rose from the volcano's heart. Its heat was gone, leaving only cold stone and silence. The servants whispered that the mountain had died, and with it, all dragons forever. But Rhaenyra felt a presence still, deep below, faint as the beat of a sleeping heart. She spent her days in solitude, walking the battlements or poring over Valyrian scrolls by candlelight. The fire that once burned in her veins had dimmed to an ember. Her eyes no longer glowed with gold, but with quiet sorrow. The fire had not left her. It had simply grown old, patient, waiting. Roderick Celtigar remained her shadow, though his beard had gone to silver. "You've grown pale, my lady," he said one morning as he found her standing by the seawall, her cloak whipped by the cold wind. "You barely eat, barely sleep." Rhaenyra's gaze was fixed on the horizon. "There is a calm before storms, Roderick. Do you feel it? The air too still, the sea too quiet. The world is holding its breath." "Then perhaps we should pray it exhales gently," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "You never believed in gods. I believe in what I can strike with a sword. Fire and shadows are poor foes for steel." "Perhaps," she said, "yet fire forged every sword ever made." That evening, the maester brought troubling tidings. "From the east, my lady," he said, laying a cracked map before her. "Sailors from Lys and Volantis speak of the sea boiling once more. The mists of Valyria glow red at night. They swear they've heard the cry of dragons." Roderick swore under his breath, but Rhaenyra only closed her eyes. "So it begins again. You mean to say the doom rises anew?" the maester asked in a trembling voice. "No," she said. "The doom never ended. It only waited for us to forget." That night she stood alone in the great hall before the carved stone dragons. "Gaemon," she whispered into the dark, "if your fire wakes again, will it spare nothing? Must all burn before the world remembers?" Only silence answered, yet she felt warmth stir within her breast, a flicker of life she thought she'd lost. By dawn, she had made her choice. "Ready a ship," she told Roderick. "I must see the truth with my own eyes." He stared at her. "You mean to sail east again? Into that cursed smoke? If the fire returns, it must be faced. You know this. I swore to guard you, not to watch you die." She turned to him, her expression calm. "I will not die. I am bound to the fire as it is bound to me. If this is to be my end, it was written long ago." The ship, Sea Star, left harbor under a heavy sky. The winds were cruel, the waves colder than steel. The crew crossed themselves when they thought her unlooking. None dared speak her name aloud. Days turned to weeks. Frost gathered upon the deck, and the breath of men steamed in the air. Yet, as they neared the smoking sea, the cold eased. The water shimmered with faint light, and the wind carried the scent of smoke once more. Rhaenyra stood at the prow, her hair silver in the firelit mist. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "The air is alive again." "I feel madness," Roderick said grimly. "No man should tread these waters twice." "Then I am no man," she replied softly. At last, the mists parted, revealing Valyria once more, but changed. The ruins burned with a quiet, crimson glow, as if a vast furnace smoldered beneath the earth. Rivers of molten rock wound through the streets like veins of living fire. The air trembled with heat and song, the deep, resonant hum of dragonfire. They anchored near the same black shore where she had once stood. The glassy sands hissed beneath their boots. The air shimmered with heat, yet no wind stirred. "This place lives again," Roderick whispered. "No," said Rhaenyra. "It remembers." She walked toward the heart of the city, her steps sure and unhurried. Every stone seemed to hum beneath her touch. At the great plaza, where once she had bound Gaemon's flame, the glass floor had cracked open anew. Through the fissures, light poured like blood. Rhaenyra knelt at the edge. "You kept your promise," she murmured. "You slept." A whisper rose from the depths. "Blood of my blood. Did you think sleep was death?" "Gaemon." Her voice trembled. "Why now?" "The world freezes. Ice spreads from the north. Fire must rise, else all falls to shadow." She shook her head. "No, fire brings ruin, and without it, the cold will claim all." Flames surged upward, encircling her. Roderick drew his sword, but the heat drove him back. Within the fire, Rhaenyra saw the shape of Gaemon, no longer spirit nor man, but something greater. His wings filled the sky, his voice the thunder of creation. "Take it, daughter of my line. You are its last vessel. The fire must live through you." Tears burned her cheeks. "I cannot bear it again. Then all you have saved will perish." She bowed her head. "So be it." She spread her arms, and the fire rushed into her. The world turned white with light. When it faded, she stood alone. The fissures had closed. The city was silent once more. Roderick found her kneeling amid the ashes. Her eyes shone with golden flame once again, though her face was calm. "It is done," she said. "The fire wakes within me. It will sleep no longer." They left Valyria as the sun rose, the sea glowing red behind them. "Will it consume you?" Roderick asked quietly as their ship turned west. "All fire consumes," she said, "but sometimes it must burn to keep the night away." She looked toward the horizon, where cold clouds gathered above the north. Somewhere beyond them, winter crept ever closer, and beneath her heart, she felt it, the faint, steady beat of a new flame, waiting to be born. The sea had turned to steel by the time Sea Star reached Blackwater Bay. The winter winds had stiffened, driving frost across the decks, yet Rhaenyra felt no cold. The fire that had returned to her burned low but steady, as if her heart had become its hearth. Every breath she took shimmered faintly in the air, and the crew kept their distance, whispering that their lady was no longer entirely mortal. When Dragonstone's dark cliffs rose from the fog, Rhaenyra felt both weariness and longing. She had seen the heart of Valyria twice and lived to return, a thing no Targaryen could claim before her. Yet there was no triumph in her eyes, only the quiet resignation of one who knew that every victory was but a prelude to loss. Sir Roderick stood beside her as the ship neared the jetty. His beard was white with frost. "Will you tell them what happened?" he asked. "They will believe what they wish," she said. "The truth burns too bright for most eyes." The garrison that remained on the island came forth to meet them. The soldiers knelt as she passed, though none dared look her full in the face. The castle had changed since her last departure. The stones felt colder, the air emptier. Even the mountain that had once smoked with quiet fury now stood silent and dead, a tomb for the age of dragons. That night, she called her council in the great hall. The fire in the hearth burned high, though no hand had kindled it. Lords from Driftmark, from Claw Isle, from the Crownlands themselves came to see her, some out of loyalty, others out of fear. "You have gone where none dared tread," said Lord Velaryon, his voice trembling. "Tell us, my lady, what did you find in the ruins of our forebears?" Rhaenyra's gaze moved slowly over them all. "I found truth," she said. "Fire is not ours to command. We are but its vessels. The doom was no accident of the earth. It was the judgment of flame against pride." Murmurs rose around the table. "Then the tales are true?" asked Maester Alric. "Valyria stirs again?" "It always stirs," she replied. "It breathes beneath the waves, patient as sleep, and when the world grows cold, it will breathe again." The hall fell silent. Only the crackle of the fire spoke. After the council dispersed, Roderick found her standing before the great windows that looked toward the sea. Outside, the wind howled around the towers like the cries of distant beasts. "They don't understand," he said. "They never did," she answered. "They think dragons were beasts of glory and conquest. They were neither. They were the world's memory of fire, bound to blood so men might wield them, and cursed for it." He studied her profile in the firelight. "And what are you now, my lady? A woman, or that memory reborn?" She smiled faintly. Both, perhaps, for a time. Winter deepened. The snows reached even the shores of Dragonstone, where none living could remember such frost. The sea froze at its edges, and the sky turned pale as old bone. Ravens came from the north, bearing tidings of darker things, of wildling hosts moving beyond the wall, of strange lights seen upon the frozen tundra, of whispers that the dead did not rest. Rhaenyra listened to each report without surprise. "The cold rises," she said. "Fire must answer." One night she climbed the mountain alone, following paths that wound through ancient vents of stone. The air grew warmer as she neared the summit, though no smoke rose from the peak. At the mountain's crown lay a hollow of black glass, a place where dragons had once nested when the world was young. She knelt there, pressing her palm to the ground. Beneath the stone, she felt the faintest pulse, slow, deep, alive. "You sleep too long," she whispered. "Wake, but not in wrath. Wake in mercy." A gust of wind rose, carrying the scent of ash. For an instant, the sky flickered red, and she heard the echo of wings far above. When she descended, Roderick was waiting at the foot of the path. "You called to it, didn't you?" "I asked," she said simply. "Whether it listens is not for me to know." That night she dreamed of fire spreading beneath ice, rivers of molten light flowing through frozen plains. She saw a great shadow rising from the heart of the north, vast and cold and endless, and beyond it, a single spark defying the darkness. When she woke, she knew what must come. At dawn, she ordered the forges lit. The smiths of Dragonstone, bewildered but obedient, worked for 7 days under her guidance. None knew what they forged, only that their lady's hands shaped every piece of it. When at last she emerged from the forge, she bore with her a sword, unlike any seen since Aegon's time. Its blade shimmered red and gold, veins of light running through dark metal like living flame. She named it Heartsbane Reforged, though it was no kin to the ancient sword of the north. It was her gift to the age to come, a weapon not of conquest, but of remembrance. Roderick watched as she held it aloft. The firelight danced upon her face, and for a heartbeat, he saw not a woman, but a dragon given human form. "What will you do with it?" he asked. "Wait," she said, "and guard what warmth remains in the world." The years that followed blurred together. Kings rose and fell. The realm changed hands more than once, yet Rhaenyra endured, untouched by age, her silver hair never paling, her eyes always faintly bright. The small folk called her the Eternal Lady, saying she was a ghost who ruled a ghostly isle. Few believed the tales of her youth, of Valyria's fire, and the prince who had become flame itself. But those who came to Dragonstone in the dark of winter swore that its halls were never cold, that its hearths burned though no logs were laid, and that at times, in the howling of the wind, one might hear the beat of wings. And upon the mountain's summit, where she had knelt so many years before, a single fissure glowed faintly still, red as a dragon's eye, waiting. Rhaenyra would often climb there at twilight, Heartsbane in her hands, and look northward. Somewhere beyond that horizon, she could feel the creeping chill, the slow advance of shadows. "When the cold comes for all," she would whisper into the wind, "I will rise again, and the fire will answer." Then she would sheathe her sword, turn toward the darkening sea, and walk back down the path, leaving the mountain to its dreaming heart of flame. The fire slept, but not forever. In the deep quiet of the passing years, Dragonstone stood apart from the world. The tides still broke against its black cliffs, and storms still crowned its towers with lightning. But the castle itself seemed half a dream, its walls veined with faint warmth, its halls whispering with the breath of sleeping dragons. To the lords of Westeros, it was a relic of an age long gone, ruled by a woman of legend. To the small folk, it was a beacon, a lonely fire burning against the endless dark. Lady Rhaenyra Targaryen, the Eternal Lady, watched as generations rose and fell. She saw kings die and kingdoms falter. Ravens came bearing tidings of wars, betrayals, and oaths broken, yet she took no part in them. Her rule was quiet, her power unspoken, but those who saw her swore she had not aged a day. Only Ser Roderick remained from the days of her youth, now bent with years but still loyal. His beard had gone white as sea foam, his hands gnarled as the roots of an ancient tree. One evening, he climbed to the sea tower where she stood, gazing eastward as the wind tore at her cloak. "My lady," he said, his voice rough as gravel, "I have served you near a lifetime. You have brought peace to this isle, but I feel my time short. Before I go, I must ask, what keeps you here? What do you wait for?" Rhaenyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dusk. "The world still turns," she said softly. "The fire is bound, but it stirs in its sleep. I remain its keeper until the hour comes when it must wake again." He sighed, shaking his head. "Then I pity the world that must see that hour." "Do not," she said, "for fire, when guided, is not only destruction, it is life. It is the first light men ever knew, and perhaps the last they shall see." Roderick knelt before her, as he had done so many years before. "If it wakes while I yet breathe," he said, "I will fight beside you one last time." She laid her hand upon his shoulder, and warmth flowed from her palm, easing the ache in his bones. "Rest, old friend," she whispered. "Your battles are done." He died that winter, his face peaceful, as though he dreamed of younger days. They laid him in a tomb upon the cliffs, where the waves would sing forever against the stone. And Rhaenyra stood alone once more. Years folded into decades. The realm forgot her name, calling her the Lady of the Flame, the Ghost of Dragonstone, or simply the Watcher. Sailors crossing Blackwater Bay claimed they saw her standing upon the battlements, her silver hair bright as moonlight, her cloak stirring though no wind blew. Then came a night unlike any other. The air grew heavy, thick with a silence so deep it seemed the world itself held its breath. The moon rose red through veils of cloud, and from the north came a chill wind that carried whispers of death. Rhaenyra felt it at once, the same cold she had seen in her dreams, creeping ever closer. She descended into the heart of the mountain, where no one had gone for 100 years. The passage was narrow, the walls black with soot and shadow. At the end lay the ancient chamber where Gaemon's fire had once been bound. The altar still stood, its surface cracked and worn. But beneath the stone, she felt the faint warmth of the fire's pulse. She knelt and pressed her hand upon it. "It is time," she said. The mountain shuddered in answer. From the fissures in the floor came the deep, slow rumble of something stirring far below. The air grew warmer, alive with the scent of smoke. The fire was waking. Above, the sky darkened as a storm gathered over the sea. Waves rose high against the cliffs, and lightning split the clouds. The people of Dragonstone fled to the lower halls, crying that the mountain was alive again. Rhaenyra climbed to the summit through the storm. At the mountain's crown, where dragons once nested, she drew her blade, Heartsbane reforged. The sword's veins glowed red, its light dancing upon the rain. She raised it toward the heavens. "Gaemon!" she cried, her voice lost in the wind. I have kept your fire as you asked. Now wake, but not in wrath. Wake in defense of the living." The ground split open at her feet. From the chasm burst a pillar of flame, swirling around her like a living thing. It did not burn her. It wrapped her in light, lifting her from the stone. Her hair streamed like molten silver, her eyes blazing gold. Below, the people fell to their knees as the volcano blazed with new life. The sea reflected its glow, turning the waters to blood-red glass. The roar that followed was not thunder. It was the cry of dragons. From the fire rose shadows, vast, winged, terrible. Not of flesh, but of flame. They circled the mountain, their cries echoing across the sky. Rhaenyra stood at their center, her sword blazing like the sun. "Go," she commanded, her voice both woman and flame. "Fly to the north. Burn the cold before it swallows the world." The dragons turned their heads as though they understood. Then they leapt skyward, streaking across the clouds toward the frozen lands beyond. Their light vanished into the storm, but their roar lingered, a promise written in thunder. When the flames faded, the mountain was still. The winds died, and the sea grew calm once more. On the summit, the people found no body, no ashes, only the sword, half buried in molten rock, its fire quenched at last. They built no tomb for her. They said she had become one with the fire she had guarded all her life, that the mountain itself was her grave and her heart. And when the storms rolled across the sea, they would whisper that it was her voice, calling her children home. Generations later, when the long night finally crept from the north and the world froze, tales spread of lights seen far above the icy plains, wings of flame flying through the storm, and a woman's shadow at their heart. Some said she was a ghost, others a goddess. But those who still kept the old faith of fire knew her name, Rhaenyra Targaryen. They whispered before their hearths, "Keeper of the flame, last daughter of Valyria, she who stands when all else falls." And in that whisper, the fire flickered brighter, as if remembering. For though mountains crumble and empires fade, fire endures. It sleeps beneath stone, waits beneath ashes, and when the darkness grows too great, it wakes once more. And somewhere, beyond the reach of mortal eyes, a woman with silver hair and golden eyes walked among the stars of her ancestors, watching the world below. She smiled, her heart alight with endless fire. The flame had passed on. The fire had kept its promise.